Sometimes we need to split data that was previously combined in one column. Sometimes we are using delimiters, but in this example we want to use the number of signs characters in our data. And it's important that even though some names seems longer than others, the number of signs is exactly the same. So we have even a bit different format for numbers, precisely the currency, but the number of signs is exactly the same for each column. And the only difference is that the last part, the last number, doesn't match this criteria of the same number of signs, but we will work with splitting it correctly from a letter to a digit. Okay, so let's select one cell in our table, go to Data tab, from Table Range to import our data to Power Query. And we have on Home tab split column by delimiter or number of characters or by position. Let's start by splitting by number of characters. This isn't the correct solution for this example, but it can be useful in similar situation when we, for example, want to split our data for by 10 characters. And it's important, let's see, advanced options, that we are splitting to columns, and we will have 5 columns. When splitting into rows, Power Query won't write number of rows because in this case it's dynamic, so it doesn't matter. Number of rows can fluctuate between examples and will be property added. The number of rows will be property added, but in case of the columns, Power Query needs to have exact number, so it will create those columns. Okay, and it's important we can create those columns repeatedly, so each 10 signs characters new column, but we can also split as far left as position and once as far right position, so once from the start and once from the end. Okay, let's see repeatedly for this example how we fit 10 characters into our split. And we have a change type, it isn't important, let's delete this step. We can see we split our data 10 characters at the time, and you can see the results aren't correct. But if our data would have the same exact number of characters in each column, we will get the proper result. So let's try different approach. So this time from Home tab, split column by position, and this sequence. So when I go to advanced options, we can see example sequence of numbers, positions to add new column. And it's important we need to start from 0. So the first column starts at the start of our text, and each position then it starts from this 0. So our first position is the length of city, then it's the length of city and first number, then it's the 2 first columns and 1 more column, so each time it's from the start. So in our example it should be 0, 12, 22 and 32, and we're adding columns, so splitting into columns. And because we have positioned, we don't have additional field with number of columns, because the number of columns depends on the number of numbers here. So let's press OK, and we can see 4 new columns, and we even have to change type, and this change type recognize currency in our values. So for a short period, let's delete this step, and we can see our values as text. And we can see a bit different in 2 first rows. We have a bit different format for currency done in the next rows. But in one step, Power Query actually find those. And it's important that when we're splitting into new columns, Power Query is adding the names of the columns. We can change this in the formula bar. Sample example, just a different number, and we can see change type once again was added this step, and we can see proper currency, and our city names looks okay, and our combined column at the end that we don't know where to split based on the number of characters, because products have the names of the products have different length, different number of letters in them. So how can we fix this? We can first of all we need to select this last column, and on the home tab split column by non-digit to digit, or we have more examples here, but in our case it's from non-digit, from letter to be precise in this example, to digits, so to number, and we can just split it like this, and we will get data split into two columns, text columns, and we can see quite complicated formula here, but it's working. And we are using a splitter function here, and let's see, and when I put dot here, I can see all splitter options I can find in my Power Query version, even more than in the split column command. Okay, let's change, get back to these numbers, and we in this splitting option we get only new columns. We didn't get change type step, and we need to change the last step to date, not the number but date. This number represents date, and can we change to date? Yes, Power Query recognize the pattern in this number and change it into the date, and with some numbers it can recognize it correctly and give us a date. Okay, this was an example when we split from a letter to a number, but we can also work with this data with the previous shown options. So we can split by number of characters. Why? Because this number at the end is always 8 digits. So number of characters 8, and once as far right as possible. So from the end, and then press OK, and we will get product names and our date. This time we get Power Query add change type step and recognize number, whole number, but we don't want whole number, we want date. And yes, we want to replace current step, and once again we will get the proper date. We should probably give those columns proper names, but it is less important in this example. We have almost correct data now, because we have two currencies, one text, one date, and the first column have the wrong values, because we have city name and many spaces. You can see many spaces to fit the quota, so fit the number of characters in column. When we change data type for currencies, each additional space, even the currency sign, was removed, and we get proper numbers. But in case of our text field, the spaces remains, so we need to trim this column. So select this column, transform tab, format, and trim those values, and now we can see we have only text. The additional spaces at the beginning and the end of the text was removed. No, we have only spaces at the end, so we don't have them now. And we can go home, close and load to, and just load our results to Excel, and we can see our original data and our data after transformations.